Good morning, everyone. Mike and Corey here today. You can see I have a green shirt on, celebration, because guess what? The markets are in green, but we'll talk more about that. Today's topics, we're going to talk about the early weekly jobs claim number that came out and how that's a little bit higher than they would like, but it's one of those where, bad news might be good news kind of thing. But more importantly, today we're going to talk about two companies that blew it out of the water that are the Mag 7, Meta, and Microsoft. And that is why the market's in the green. It's not because all the companies are doing great. It's because at least two of them that reported yesterday that we hold in our models, which of course I love to say, they did fantastic. So we, of course, love that. This is a financial education presentation. You must do your own due diligence on anything in this presentation. More disclaimer information can be found on ankerstarwealth.com, and the opinions expressed are mine and Corey's alone. So, we'll start off on the, you always get that question with your kids. You want to hear bad news first, good news? I don't know. Most people, I think they want to hear the bad news first. At least I think that's the way I am. And then I want to close on good news. So that's what we're going to do today. So yesterday we heard the economy went down by 0.3%. That's bad news. And today, the weekly jobless claims surged to 241,000. I don't know, surge, they were expecting it to be 225,000. I don't know. It's a headline grabber. They were up a little higher than they expected. So those are bad news. Those would say our economy is shrinking, unemployment is going up. That's bad news. So, kind of what's the good news side of that is that's more likely the Fed is going to lower the discount rate and make cheap money for investing. That's what stock markets love to hear. So that's the good news side of it. Another article, just a quick glance, is the U.S. Chamber of Commerce asked Trump for tax exclusions to stave off a recession. Guess what? This last quarter was negative. I think it's very likely that this quarter is negative. Technically, we are probably in the middle of a recession. Does it feel like a recession? I'm not really sure. But when you go by the metrics, 2 quarters of negative GDP, we are probably, I won't be able to answer that until July, but we're probably in the middle of a recession. The key is it going to be a short recession, and that the stocks can just blow out of it and have a V-shaped recovery? That's really the question we're going to move towards. And we certainly hope and believe that it is, because all of us invest our dollars in these companies. So, Trump does have some, ability here to make tariffs. Maybe we can downplay this. I honestly think that it may have been a big mistake to go so big and so broad on tariffs rather than just focus on a few countries and kind of resolve it with them. I think when Trump started with tariffs, it started off with Mexico and Canada and China, and it felt like you're making some progress. But when you made it everybody and reciprocal, it just became this unwieldy animal. We'll see where all this goes. One other, just real quick, McDonald's, which, pulse, your finger on the pulse of the consumer, their same store sales shrank by 3.6%. As far as healthy eating, this is probably a good thing, but as far as an investor in the company, not a good thing. So anyways, I just saw that. They beat on earnings, but missed on revenue. So they still make good profit. They just didn't bring in as many dollars from my kids buying their food. So what's the market doing? Let's take a look. Overall, the S&P's up almost 1%, and the Nasdaq's up 1.6%. And then, now I'm going to really move into the good news part of it. And this is where it is. Meta. Look at, we got to put Zuckerberg's face on there. He's not the 18-year-old or 19-year-old he was when he started this company. It's kind of amazing to see a person like him grow from, basically a kid into managing this multi-trillion-dollar, monster company and have a vision for the future. But anyways, they blew it out as far as earnings. $6.43 versus 528 expected, and 42 billion in revenue versus 41 billion expected. So, and guess what? When you think about Meta, how impacted are they by tariffs? Not too much. I mean, that's probably another reason why Meta's pretty good. I mean, they're the virtual world. They're not importing anything other than maybe their glasses or whatever, but minimal impact from tariffs. And I like to call it out. This is one of our holdings in our models. So of course we're watching these earnings and seeing how this does. If any of you have seen Ready Player One, the metaverse is the future, at least according to that movie and some other people. That may be good or bad. Corey, what do you think? The metaverse is the future?
I do think if you could, an 80-year-old Corey, a 90-year-old Corey, if you could get my brain into a computer, and into an avatar, some kind of robot, some kind of humanoid robot, then I could continue compounding my investments for much longer. But
oh my gosh. Well, I hate to say it. When you said the 90-year-old Corey, I thought that's the underground Mike there, because Mike will very unlikely to be alive. but maybe you could have a little digital picture of in the background, like on your virtual office. Like there's Mike.
If you get me into a humanoid, does that fix a few things, like any hair? Will I stop having to brush my teeth and stuff?
Oh my goodness.
Is that part of being a humanoid?
I don't know. I don't know, but I know you can work 24/7. So that's
yeah, no more sleep. Well, I don't know.
You don't need any more sleep.
I guess you're right.
Okay, well, take us. So Meta's up. I think it says 5%, but I saw it was up 6 or 7%. I don't know if it'll hold that. But Meta has done pretty well. So good job to them. And if you thought Meta did good, if you remember the three companies that were vying to be the biggest in the world, it's a race between NVIDIA, Apple, and Microsoft. They're all like, there was different times last year, each one took the lead. I think today, Microsoft showed something very impressive. So I'll turn it over to Corey for the analysis.
Yeah, absolutely, Mike. Actually, it's kind of my hot take, that this is so compelling from Microsoft, what they delivered here, that some of and I haven't looked at the DAX and some of the international indices today, but this is so compelling, and it's such a statement type of quarter that I think you could see some pressure on those international indices that have been doing and holding up really well, because these other countries just don't have companies like this. There's only one country that has companies like this. So let's couple of highlights. I'm actually just going to hit one business highlight, and you can see when I took the screenshot, the stock was up over 9%, which, yeah, that is a pretty big move for a multi-trillion-dollar company for sure. Here's the kind of the showstopper, if you will. Server products and cloud services revenue increased 22%, driven by Azure and other cloud services revenue growth of 33%. They were expected to come in at like 29%, and up until this quarter, you'd seen that Azure growth rate slowing down just a little by little. Obviously, growing 25% plus is very fast growth, but just relative to itself, it had been moderating just a little bit. And if you look at it at constant currency, they actually came in with a 35% growth. So they were expected to be in the high 20s, and this is like a brand new reacceleration in Azure, which that was not on the table. No one thought that Azure was going to reaccelerate growth. That's why you're seeing the stock do what it's doing. When you get a number like that, it invites investors' imaginations back into the story. And you can get multiple expansion on top of their earnings. So you can see people can get excitement and enthusiasm and start, projecting and thinking out, man, maybe the future is better than we even imagined. And then you see the stock react as it did. Some other notes. This is also impacting people's imaginations. AI is now generating roughly 30% of the code that developers have traditionally created at the company. So what's that going to do to margins over time? It's probably not going to shrink margins. You're seeing, of course, what I mentioned, the reacceleration in cloud revenue. AI demand, this was mentioned on the call. AI demand continues to exceed capacity. So what does that do? So you probably look at an NVIDIA, it's probably up today. Maybe some of those other chip makers, they're probably up today. Why? Because Microsoft just told you demand is still greater than capacity from what they can see. And that's a green light for the AI revolution story to continue. And then, further just on Microsoft, strong growth in all business segments. They're a pretty diversified company, LinkedIn, gaming, all kinds of stuff. Obviously, the suite of products that we all probably use on our computers and things like that. So diversified, and all business segments had strong growth. Pretty shocking, pretty crazy quarter, Mike.
And once again, a tariff resistant company. I mean, Microsoft doesn't sell a lot of hardware, so that makes it less susceptible. And I was thinking about this morning when I was thinking about that report with AI. We know AI can save cost. It can do a lot of cool stuff, but the bigger the company, the more impact it can have. I mean, and obviously it can have impact on a small company, but someone like Microsoft, that's just, and I don't know the latest percentage, they own a piece of ChatGPT. It might have been 10%. It comes to mind. I mean, they're also profiting on that side as well. Someday, as the valuation of ChatGPT goes up, so Microsoft will also, benefit someday, or at least on their balance sheet. So good news. We'll see tonight. I think, what do we have tonight? It's Apple and Amazon after the bell.
Yeah, Mike, I'll tell you what I am most interested in, because I think Azure outpaced Google's cloud growth. Azure, that was crazy, right? Is that a tell that Amazon's cloud AWS growth is going to be through the roof as well? Or is this going to be a thing where, for whatever reason, Microsoft is just starting to maybe take the reins in that race? Do you have a prediction there?
Yeah. I've heard Amazon is, there's some concerns with them. They are very tariff sensitive, and Apple is as well. So, I don't know if that's what could impact their stock, but I just believe when you talk about these top, let's call it 10 companies, they are so smart and so agile, at least with world politics and leaders and what's going on, that they'll find a way. They will find a way. Obviously AWS, let's see, I couldn't tell you whether Microsoft took share or it's just a growing market. The pie's
so no
getting
prediction.
bigger.
You don't have a prediction on it?
I'm gonna, after today, these two in the green, I'm actually gonna go out on a limb and say I think the two will be in the red tonight. I think Amazon and Apple will not show as good as these two today. So we'll see. I could be wrong. One of those things, like when the Mag 7 comes out, I don't want to say, well, all 7 of them are going to go up, because it never happens. It's usually like 4 or 5 out of 7. So we'll see which ones. Yeah, I think Apple's going to come out with some and say, hey, this tariff thing affects us because we can't get the iPhones as inexpensively. So I think Apple will be affected, and I think Amazon will be affected because they may say, hey, prices go up. Guess what? People buy less. We don't make as much revenue. They'll be affected. So we'll see. All right. Thanks everybody for hopping on. We'll talk to you tomorrow.